If you want conclusive proof that elections are not won on foreign policy, look no further than France. After a hero's welcome in Libya, after a rousing speech last week in New York that won praise from Palestinians at the United Nations, Nicolas Sarkozy returned home to see the ruling Conservatives lose control of the Senate for the first time since General de Gaulle founded the Fifth Republic, more than a half-century ago. With some 7 months before Sarkozy runs for re-election, pollsters point to incumbent fatigue, an ailment that befalls all of the West's leaders in these economic hard times. But in France, there's also the steady drip of revelations regarding cash for campaign scandals, and perhaps also the maverick style of a president unlike any of his predecessors. Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at a Nicolas Sarkozy weighed down by scandals and asking if he'll be a one-term president. With us to talk about it, investigative reporter Pascal Henry, who last year produced a documentary on the so-called Karachi kickbacks affair that's plaguing the president's entourage. We'll go into more detail about it in a moment. Yann Drevet of the youth movement of the ruling conservative UMP party. Welcome to the show. Craig Koupidis, senior writer for Bloomberg News, and Pierre Conessau teaches at Paris's Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, and hot off the presses has just penned The Fabrication of the Enemy. In one word, Pierre, this is a story about how basically politicians pitch the concept of going to war.
Yeah, yes. That book is a result of my own experience.
All right, and hopefully soon in translation in English.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, by the way, you can follow the France 24 debate on Facebook and also on Twitter, where our handle is @FrancoisF24. Pascal Henry, I'm going to begin with the news about the Senate going to the left. Now, in this country, the Senate is kind of like the House of Lords in the UK.
Right.
They're not directly elected by the people. It's not that big a deal. The lower house still has the last say. Still, is this a big blow for Nicolas Sarkozy?
Well, I'm not an expert on this case, but what I can say is usually what we said about the Senate is it represents the country in France.
When you say the country, you mean the countryside.
The countryside, yes.
Yeah.
And that means that they are different than most of the population that is in cities, in fact. We are 65 million, and the Senate represents, in fact, more the countryside than the cities, and the cities are a main part of the population, and that's the big gap between in democracy for Senate.
So it's not that big a blow for the president.
Yes, it's going to be because to publish the law, you need to have a support of the Senate. And if you are not able to have the support of the Senate, you're in trouble for the last few months before the election.
All right, and tracking polls, by the way, all tell the same tale when it comes to the president. That of a man whose popularity is stuck in the 30% range. What is it? 35% is the latest poll. Of course, Yann Drevet, you'll argue that the question is who's he going to be facing when he runs for president. Still, those numbers are low, in the 30s when it comes to popularity.
Yeah, this is low, but at the same time, I mean, we have to. We don't believe in polls. We have seen so many, changes and very fast changes during campaigns. We cannot take it for granted, of course, and change can happen very, very, very fast. So we are still very confident. We think that it was a defeat. We have to admit it and to take the consequences, to act, to take more actions, take steps forward. But we don't think that the reforms are put into questions. We have to go further. We have to continue working for the French citizens. And we pay the price of some disunions, of some struggles inside the party. So we have to get together again, and we have to work together for the next campaign and be full of energy, full of conviction. We have to see the electors everywhere in France, and we have to convince them. So we have a lot of work to do, but we are ready for this.
Craig Koupidis, I remember you coming on this very set, during the European elections. And I was asking you, at the time, the French president fared well. And you said it's a time of crisis. Voters like strong leaders. He's not doing well in the polls nowadays.
It's a long time till the election. I still think Sarkozy is a very strong leader. Certainly when compared against the competition, he's much stronger.
The polls, though, the tracking polls 1-to-1 against most of his main rivals from the socialist camp, see him
The
behind.
only poll that counts is the final tally at the ballot box. He will campaign. There will be more ups, there will be more downs, there will be more confusion, there will be chaos. Such is democracy.
But when, for instance, Barack Obama is now in the mid-40s, and that's seen as disastrous by some. And nobody seems to be that bothered about.
Look, there's two ways you can use statistics, and in politics, statistics like the ones you're throwing out now are used precisely in the same way that a drunk uses a lamppost. They're used for support, not for illumination. And I think you have to go a lot deeper here in what's going on. This is not a crisis that's hitting Europe right now. This is total chaos. Europe could cave in. The bankers and the politicians have absolutely no idea what to do. The leadership in the countries that owe money, let alone the countries that lent them the money in the first place, are running around chaos without cash flow. Europe, France, is going to need a strong leader, and we have a long time before the election. And I would suggest, look at this from an illumination point. What is Sarkozy going to do about to make his candidacy even stronger? Don't let this guy kid you. He can do it. He is a strong leader. And as we said before on this show, and other panelists had agreed, that the only candidate from the socialist side who could give him a run for his money and possibly win him was Mr. Strauss-Kahn. And he's not here anymore.
He certainly isn't. Pierre Conessa, the 7 months, not too long a time to turn things around. What do you think? You're not that bothered either by the numbers?
Well, you know, I'm quite convinced by the last argument. I mean, you know, the guy who was presented by polls as a favorite, or as the guy who was so-called quite elected, Mr. Strauss-Kahn. Everybody knows what happened at last. And I think that, unfortunately, the campaign will be an opportunity to deliver promises and to deliver arguments which are not so at the level of the depths of the crisis. That's a very important case. And I'm also agreeing with you that Mr. Sarkozy seems to be a tough guy. I mean, in the situation in which we are obliged to make some very sensitive decisions. Who in the left wing is able to do it? I don't know.
All right, but there is the issue of now these corruption scandals, which are come on top of all of the economic chaos, as Craig was calling it a minute ago. And we mentioned at the top that there are revelations, fresh ones, in the 2002 Karachi bomb blast that killed 11 French engineers. They were working at the time on a submarine contract. Officially, it's jihadist militants who are to blame, but the victims' families point the finger at Pakistan's notorious ISI intelligence services, who they claim were angry over then-President Jacques Chirac's decision to stop paying commissions. Pascal-Henri, for people who don't know this case, some of that money allegedly was making its way back to France.
Yeah, kickbacks, yeah.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah, but the investigation starts with Al-Qaeda responsibility for this blasting. And but in fact, the investigation shows that it is not the case, because many elements shows that it is not the case. And after that, the judge go further on the investigation, and they find that even though they try to investigate all the line of inquiry to understand what can be the answer why, and the only reason possible is money, kickbacks. That's, say step by step, they find that there's no other solution. That's why today the prosecutors are investigating money laundering, money trail from Luxembourg to Panama to different offshore places and coming back to the campaign of Mr.
And when you
Balladur.
started investigating this case, did you ever, at any point, did you ever feel like the president was directly involved somehow? Because at the time,
no.
he was spokesperson for the campaign
Yeah.
of the then Prime Minister Edouard Balladur.
Yeah, more than that, he was a Minister of Budget. And so he authorized the creation of offshore companies that receive the cash, the money for the kickbacks and the money to corrupt people. But it was, at the time, it was legal. And so that's the involvement of the president. As far as I know, today, we cannot involve him directly in this case.
It was legal at the time. That's the important point. Pierre Conessa, there's also a scandal involving that's involved many governments, not just the current one with the frigates to Taiwan. It seems as though whenever there's a huge arms deal at stake, a lot of money goes around the system.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, arms export is the field in which it's so easy to get bribery and, if possible, kickbacks. But I'm guaranteed that it's not a French speciality.
We've seen it with the UK and the BAE.
Yeah, UK, Germany, United States, etc. But every country is adapting its system. Why Mr. Was explaining we were in a period in which it was legal, because in '97 we had the OECD agreement, which is the first international convention to forbid practices of corruption, concluding that the justice of the firm, the justice of the country in which the company is implemented, is responsible for the sue. So after '97 it was forbidden, but at that time it was legal. Mm-hmm. The question you were asking is what's the level of responsibility of Mr. Sarkozy, but in that precise case there was a chain of responsibility, because all the system was built to make money to permit Mr. Balladur to fund his campaign
For president, his unsuccessful bid for president in 1995.
Right. Yeah. So it was not the responsibility of Mr. Sarkozy, it was just a piece of the puzzle. But it was a piece which is authorizing, in particular, commission.
All right, now the story got a jolt last week when the estranged wife of the best man at Nicolas Sarkozy's wedding to Carla Bruni went to the newspapers. Hélène of Yugoslavia, a descendant of the kings of Italy, says her husband, Nicolas Basile, talked of trips to Switzerland via London, so as not to attract attention, to pick up bags of money. And was Sarkozy involved? Let's listen to her.
I didn't see him come to my house, but my husband told me that he did. I was summoned by the judicial police and was held for 9 hours, and the truth had already been established. I was questioned about documents that were found during the search, and there were documents which, to my great surprise, I had signed. I trusted my husband, and they were really compromising documents. I was thunderstruck.
Pascal Henry, she's the estranged wife of a very close aide to the president.
Mm-hmm. A former one, because he's a close friend, but not a. He used to be an advisor at the Ministry of Budget at the time of the when the contract has been signed in 1994. What appears in that new affair in the affair is that the close circle, you know, the best friend of Mr. Sarkozy are involved in the money, carrying bags of money from Switzerland to Mr. Balladur campaign. Allegedly, we have no evidence for that for now. It's just a testimony. But for years and years, since 1996, we know that we have heard this story. Again and again, we speak about this, but the justice was always stopped, you know, in the investigation. But for the first time now, it's now 16 years, 17 years now. The wall is on a way to break.
What do you mean?
Because we were always stopped in the investigation, part journalists, the other part the justice, and today, with the testimony of insiders as the women's, the information, what we knew, is confirmed by those testimony.
And unwittingly, the reason she went to the papers, she says, was because she was being intimidated, that her husband had gotten word from another confidant of the president, the former interior minister, of her testimony. The French Magistrates Union, by the way, furious that the former interior minister, Brice Hortefeux, leaked the minutes of Hélène de Yougoslavie's statements to her estranged husband.
How did Monsieur Hortefeux call someone who was in police custody? He has admitted to that. This is a really important question. We really need an investigation on this issue specifically.
Yann Drevet, Brice Hortefeux, should he maybe get out of politics for a while? I mean, this is, if he's really been able to access the minutes of an ongoing police investigation, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, I have to be very humble and sincere. Those facts last from, I was like 10 years old at that time. So, I mean, as maybe you know more than me, but what I want to say that essentially what I want is the justice to do its work and to get the investigations. And we have two principles in France.
But the man who's tipped to be his campaign manager has gone not 10 years ago, but last week and leaked apparently.
But we have to let the justice establish the facts. I mean, we don't know who heard the conversation for the moment. I didn't. So, I mean, it's like for the DSK gate. I mean, the UMP was very cautious. We do respect it all the time. You know, respect the victim, respect DSK, respect the principle, which means that you are innocent until you're proven guilty. So, I mean, even the UMP had the right to be protected by that, even the leaders, even Nicolas Sarkozy. And the Socialist Party, right into its primaries, and it needed some space media, it needed some publicity. Now they are keen on attacking everybody. As you saw, Ségolène Royal on Libération make a very strong statement, very injurious on Nicolas Sarkozy.
All right, when we come back, we'll pick up on this point. Stay with us. The France 24 debate continues.